In today's video, we're checking out a lens that's quite a bit different. This is the Meike 3.5mm Circular Fish-Eye Lens for Micro Four Thirds. This lens can see behind itself. Let's get into it. Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. Before we get going, I just want to let you know that Meike have sent this out for review. I didn't buy it. At the time of shooting this video, it retails for around $159 US. A massive thanks to them for sending this out. If you want to check it out, I'll link it down below. There'll also be some timestamps down there so you can skip ahead back or forth to each particular section of this video. Just to let you know, they don't get any input into this video. They haven't given me any scripts. All thoughts about this will be my own, and I'll list all the pros and cons at the end of this video. There's a couple of things that makes this really interesting. First off, the 220-degree field of view means that if you're holding the camera conventionally like this, it will see your hand on the grip of the camera. So it doesn't bother me too much, but I know some people won't want their hand in the shot. So you can either use a remote shutter or you can set it up on a selfie stick or some sort of tripod and take photos that way, and it won't see that in the shot. If you're standing with the camera right near your body like this and you take a photo, it will see your shoes. That's how wide the field of view is. It's pretty crazy. Before we get into the specs, just know this lens is 100% completely manual. There's no terminals on the back of the lens, so you can't use autofocus whatsoever. It does have a focus ring and an aperture ring built directly onto the lens, which is a really great addition, and both of them feel really good in the hand. This lens is constructed of 10 elements in 7 groups with an aperture range of f2.8 to f16. We get a minimum focusing distance of only 3.5mm. This is built for Micro Four Thirds mirrorless cameras, and it has an equivalent focal range of 7mm when you're talking about the full frame equivalent, so that's extremely wide. The weight of this lens comes in at 190 grams, which is quite a lot heavier than the 15mm f1.7 prime lens from Panasonic. So just in terms of apples from apples, both of these have metal construction, although this does feel quite a lot heavier in the hand, which gives it a really premium feel. If you're new to the world of interchangeable lenses, I'll just give you a quick rundown. This doesn't have any zoom features. It's more like a prime lens, giving you one standard field of view, and that's it. So unless you need that fisheye look, that's all that this does. All of the sample footage and photos will be shot using the Panasonic GH5 Mark II, which is a great hybrid camera. You can use this with any Micro Four Thirds camera, including Olympus and other Panasonic models. Having a super wide 220-degree field of view is pretty insane. If you lay it down flat on the table and take a photo of your room, it will see every corner of your room. That's how wide this field of view is. This is the first Meike lens I've had in my hands. One of the things that really surprised me was how fluid the focus ring feels. It feels great. It has hard stops on either side. Much like the aperture ring, it works in exactly the same way. The biggest difference in usability between the Panasonic 15mm f1.7 prime versus the Meike is that the focus ring and the aperture ring are reversed in position to that of the Panasonic. So if you're used to using the focus ring closest to the camera and the aperture ring further away or to the edge of the lens, it's reversed on the Meike. So that's just something you'll have to get used to. The physical size of this lens is extremely small, and that's one of the cool things about it, but I do have one small nitpick. I find that sometimes getting to the focus ring or aperture ring a little bit more difficult than other lenses in the Panasonic range, especially for Micro Four Thirds. But that said, size is why you stick with Micro Four Thirds a lot of the time, and this couldn't get any smaller. Included in the box, we get everything we need. We get the lens, a lens hood, a lens bag, a microfiber cloth, and some instructions. My only small critique about the lens hood is that it doesn't feel 100% secure all of the time. If we take a look at the front of the lens here, it's very different to a traditional prime lens. You can see the front element is completely concaved, which allows us to get that wide field of view. So this type of cap is about the best that they could provide. It works, but I don't trust it fully. When it comes to image sharpness, both in photo and video, this lens performs extremely well dead center. It doesn't perform so well on the edges because there's no real corner sharpness on a lens with this sort of field of view. Everything's circular, and it isn't the same as a conventional lens. But if you put something right in front of the lens, focus in on it, it will be tack sharp. And if you zoom in on your photos, you'll see just how sharp it is. The center of this lens looks really, really sharp. When it comes to getting great subject separation or background blur and bokeh, this lens really delivers. f2.8 on Micro Four Thirds is enough to get great subject separation. And being that we also have a minimum focusing distance of 3.5mm, it's really easy to blur out the background. Now you might not get as much bokeh as something like a 1.7 or 1.4 for micro four thirds, but 2.8 is definitely enough to give you that look. For those who like to get the sunstar effect, turn the aperture ring to f16, point it up in the sky and go click. It's very, very easy to get that effect with this lens, and I was really impressed with how it handled it. One thing you'll notice with this lens is how prone it is to lens flaring. Now, some of it can be seen as artistic and kind of cool, but I almost couldn't take a photo with this outdoors without getting some sort of lens flare. This is a coated lens, but I still found it to be a little bit problematic. Interestingly enough, while I think some of it is artistic, one thing I noticed, especially in video mode, was how it saw the lens mount on the camera itself behind the lens. Because of that super wide field of view, it gets all of these funky colors coming up on screen. It didn't do that all of the time, but if you're shooting in direct sunlight, you'll definitely notice it. If you're shooting away from the sun or a direct light source, the lens flares will be fine, and it worked a lot of the time, especially on an overcast day. I didn't have any issues whatsoever. Let's talk about my experience shooting video with this, starting with vlogging. So if you're a vlogger, you can absolutely get yourself and everything else in shot at arm's length. So if that's important to you, this might be the right choice. But one of the downsides to it is that the stabilization in this camera is spectacular, but paired with this lens, it's not great. There's a lot of warpy stuff going on, which I found over the years a 15mm or a 12mm lens on micro four thirds is as wide as you want to go for vlogging before stuff starts to get a bit warpy, and I felt like this just doesn't do a great job in terms of its image stabilization with this particular lens. Now, if you've got an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III or II, you might see different results to what I've experienced, but this camera has great stabilization, but paired with this lens, it didn't look so good. If you plan on shooting in standard UHD, your video will be chopped at the top. You can, of course, if your camera supports it, shoot in anamorphic 6K or 4K, which allows you to get a 4:3 aspect ratio. And I tried it with this, and allows you to see the full circle field of view as opposed to chopping it off at the top. So if you've got a GH5, GH5S or GH5 Mark II, you can definitely shoot in that mode. One of the most creative shots I had a chance to shoot with this was one of my favorites. I extended a selfie stick as far as it would go. I connected the camera to the bottom. I started with it facing towards the ground. I lifted it up just like this, like a fishing rod kind of thing, and lifted it up into the sky, and it looked awesome. And I can see that shot being used creatively on a number of different projects. Thanks for watching, folks. My name's Shane. I'm going to wrap this video up by just talking about the pros and cons of this particular lens. So value for money, it's extremely good. Sharpness, it's great. You get a really functional focus and aperture ring, and the build quality is really good. So I would have no hesitations recommending this in terms of build quality and performance for this particular type of lens. Where I think this shines is its minimum focusing distance, the ability to get decent background blur on a micro four thirds system while getting that fisheye look. And if that's what you need, this lens will deliver without any problems. So for that, I find it very, very usable. For video, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because there'd be no reason for me to take this vlogging when I could be using something like a GoPro that's about 4 times lighter, and it will give me far better fields of view. Even in super view, it's not as wide as this. So I would take a GoPro without question over a manual focus lens that is far heavier overall. So this is a real specialty lens. I can see this being used for certain shots in certain projects, but not as something you would use all of the time. I would not recommend cropping in on this image and trying to de-fisheye it, because the results I've seen of that, even through my own testing, I wasn't very happy with, and you add a huge loss of resolution. So if you really want something that you can just go vlogging with at super wide angle, get a GoPro or get something like the 12 to 60 kit lens for this particular system. It will work far better for regular type of shooting while still being wide enough. But the fisheye look is something really special if you can use it creatively and in an interesting way. There's nothing to stop you from cropping in, but I feel like with video especially, you're at a loss of obvious resolution, and all of the samples I've seen of that so far, it doesn't do it any justice. If you plan on doing that, then this lens isn't for you. But if you can live with the fisheye look and it's something that you love and you want something a bit different, then it's definitely worth giving it a shot. Thanks again for watching, and thanks again to Mikey for sending this out. I'll catch you soon. See ya.